Hey everybody, let's talk about murder! Too unpleasant? Let me tell you a little something about myself. I am actually a big fan of the mystery genre. I enjoy the feeling of suspense, not knowing what's going on, but being compelled to discover the truth. And one company that has been consistently impressing me with its murder mystery stories is Spike Chunsoft. I'm sure you've heard of them. If not, well, let me fill you in. They are the creators of the Zero Escape trilogy as well as the Danganronpa series. They're visual novel games that tell some of the most insane what the hell is going on murder mysteries ever. No joke, their setups are crazy, surreal, and complicated, but when you actually figure out what the heck is going on, it makes sense. That trend continues with AI, the Somnium Files, or whatever you want to call it. With all the talk of video games being more needed than ever, I've decided to talk about a video game that's been distracting me from all the doom and gloom outside, by confronting doom and gloom. There have actually been a few games that have been helping me out. The first one being Persona 5 Royal, which has been awesome by the way, and another one has been Final Fantasy XIV Online, which is insanely addictive. But I'm going to talk about this game because it's fairly niche, and I do mean niche. You want to know how I heard about this game? It was actually on Yongyea's channel. He made a video detailing the story of how one man single-handedly review bombed the game on Metacritic because of a crush he had on one of the female characters.
Now this edit section I'll get to in a bit, but what you need to know is that as of this post, it seemed as though this individual was trying to protect the game and investigate what was going on and just root for the game by saying, yeah, the user's score, super abusable, AI Somnium Files doesn't deserve this. That's the vibe people got from this individual, right up until they discovered that this user was actually the one responsible for the review bombs. There's one takeaway you should get from this unfortunate situation I've gotten myself into. It's that ASET means a lot to me. So the more you read into this individual's intentions, the more you realize, oh, this guy just flat out hated many aspects of the game and how it treated his crush character.
Wow, I thought my autism was bad. Anyway, since then I'd actually become interested in the game, and then I eventually bought it on Steam when it went on sale. And now that I've played through it from start to finish, I've decided to make a review of it because I like it so much. So without further ado, let's begin. First off, let's talk about the story. It starts off with bloody, cold-blooded murder. With lots of blood. The body of a woman named Shoko Nadame has been discovered in a bit of a gruesome fashion. She's been stabbed multiple times and her left eyeball is missing. The player assumes the role of Detective Kanami Date, who has been assigned to the case. He quickly discovers that this killing mirrors a series of murders from 6 years ago called the Cyclops Killings. And whoever has done this is presumably the new Cyclops Killer. But then upon further investigation, Date discovers that this series of gruesome events is linked directly to him, and it involves his past. I won't talk about spoilers, but I will say that the plot of AI is fantastic. It's not just a good murder mystery story, it's a good story, period. There's plenty of twists and turns, the characters are very well fleshed out, the pacing is excellent, and it makes you want to see what's going to happen all the way over to the ending. But, and I'm probably gonna get flack for this, I do have a few small issues with it. I'll get into them later though. Anyway, let's start off with the positives. The first one being the characters. There are a ton. And what makes them great is how the story presents them. There's a wide range of personalities, and the game never tells you how to feel about them. It just shows you them and lets you decide for yourself. So you either love some of these characters or you hate them. But that's also what makes the writing so good. Because you have different opinions and reactions to all the characters in this game, it means that they're all believable. Which leads me into the next reason why the writing is so good. It does a really good job of fleshing them out as the story goes along. As it goes on, you start learning more and more about them. You learn about their backstories, what their troubles are, and ultimately why they're all like this. As a result, you do begin to care about them through the various and different routes you can take. And yes, I said routes. You go down different story routes, each with different endings, and each character gets one route dedicated to them. And thankfully, the game has the nifty addition of a level select screen in the form of a flowchart. From here, you can select any level in the entire game, so you don't have to replay any content to get to the stuff you missed. When I was first playing through this, I actually thought that this was a game that simply had multiple endings. But as I pressed on, I began to notice a few things. Most of the routes seem to have abrupt endings, and they never give you all of the answers. Just some of them. So as I was going through them, I began thinking, do I have to get all of these endings in order to unlock the best ending? And as it turns out, I was actually right. Not only do the routes flesh out the characters greatly, but they also give you tidbits of information. Every now and then there's a new factor or rule that gets introduced that adds greater context to the world. So I started thinking about why it was like this, and it made me speculate. What if all of the story routes combined in some way or another? And I was partially right. I'll get into that a bit later. Overall, the story is well paced, well written, has great characters, and will keep you guessing about what's happening until the very end. Now let's talk about the gameplay, and this is where I think the game does stumble. But only a little bit. There's actually two halves to the game, one for when you're in the real world and another for when you're in the dream world known as Somnium. First, there's the sections in the real world where you're playing as Date. You have to talk to people and investigate crime scenes. You know, looking for clues and such. In these sections, you will do a ton of talking to people, which I actually don't mind for two reasons. A, the conversation options let you take the story in at your own pace. And the dialogue is well written enough to be interesting, coupled with good voice acting.
Interrogators say she hasn't said a word since we found her.
The doctors say she's traumatized. She can't speak. She's seeing a specialist at Central Hospital right now.
Did you take her to the hospital after we found her?
Yeah.
Were you with her this whole time? You're like her legal guardian then.
No, she just lives with me.
I'm waiting for Tessa to come out.
This is an office building, not a concert hall.
This is the main facility of Lemniscate Entertainment's production branch. There are multiple studios for recording and broadcasting in this building. Tessa is recording a podcast today.
Who are you?
I'm me, of course.
I know that voice. Iba?
Indeed.
Why do you look like a fluorescent shrimp?
What are you talking about? I must look so cute that you've lost your mind.
So yes, I actually don't mind the dialogue heavy sections. In fact, for anything, I actually welcome them. What I do feel could have done with some improvement are the combat sections. The game kind of took a back seat to them. When Date gets into a gunfight, he takes out this interesting looking weapon called the Evolver, a gun that transforms when it enters a firefight and can use different types of bullets. Like it can use incendiary bullets, exploding bullets, or even just regular bullets. The setups for the action scenes are actually pretty good, but my main problem with it is that it's just a bunch of QuickTime events. Press this button at the right time to not die. It's not a big issue, but here's why I still think it's a missed opportunity. As I said before, the Evolver can use multiple and different types of bullets, but the thing is, you don't get to choose which bullets you get to use. Iba chooses them for you. Here's why I think this is a missed opportunity. What if you could choose which bullets you wanted to use and it could alter the outcome of the firefights? I'm not saying it has to affect the outcome of the story, but it would be cool if the player could add their own personal touch to how the action scenes turn out. Now let's talk about the second half of the gameplay. And this is easily my favorite part of this game, the Somnium levels. These are levels where you play as Aiba, an AI who lives inside Date's electronic eye.
Hello!
By the way, Aiba is so best girl. Anyway, in these sections you have to solve puzzles on a timer. And I will admit it is a little stress-inducing having a limited amount of time to solve the puzzles. But for me it's not really that big of a deal, since when you run out of time all that really happens is you just start over from the beginning. But here's what makes them special. Most of these can be solved in two different ways, and depending on how you decide to solve them, it leads down two different routes. This is how you access the various and different story paths that I talked about earlier. The puzzles aren't too obtuse either. They can be a little tricky at first, but with some poking and prodding around, you'll eventually find the answers. Plus, as a fan of the Persona games, I'm practically in my element with these levels. So yes, for the most part the game is actually pretty damn good. However, there is one big problem with it, and it is a big one. This game has one very big plot hole. It's not a deal breaker, but it is something I do want to bring up. But first, let me tell you what my experience was with this game. When I was first playing through this, I actually got the bad ending route first. It felt like it was building up to something big, but before it could get to it, it abruptly ended before anything could be properly resolved. At first I didn't get it, but as I was playing through the game, going through the story missions and piecing the case together in my head, I actually started to think about why the narrative was structured like this. Like I said earlier, all of the routes have various tidbits of information, and the more I learned, the more it started coming together in my head. So I started thinking, what if all of these timelines started combining into each other? And I was sort of right. During the good and bad endings, Date starts remembering pieces of information that he has learned across his journey, but he remembers them from the other timelines. And the game doesn't forget about it either. Date actually does think about it. He starts thinking, wait, how do I remember that? I kept expecting the game to offer an explanation to all of this, but no, it never happens. You don't get any context beyond parallel worlds exist. The rest of the story is great, with great characters, great moments, and great dialogue. It's just that one plot hole I cannot get behind. Of course, I have now since learned that the director of this game, his name is Kotaro Ichijoji. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. His previous games actually did the exact same thing. And I have barely played the Zero Escape trilogy. I know, I suck. I have played through some of 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, but I got the bad ending. How do I keep doing this with this man's games? Seriously. And then after that, I kinda just dropped off the game because, well, other games just got in the way and I didn't have time to play through this one again. Anyway, that one big plot hole aside, AI the Somnium Files is great. If you're a fan of these sorts of games, or if you just like unraveling dark, complex mysteries, then this is for you. Check it out when you have the time.